Okay, so what are the UN SDGs? So basically, 10 years ago, the United Nations um, came together, brought together countries, about 193 of them, and decided on a 15-year plan and said, these are the problems of the world. And the main priority of these problems that we've identified, or why we want to solve these problems, is to end poverty, one, two, protect the planet, and three, ensure prosperity for all. Okay. So, in essence, the SDGs are a benchmark, they are a standard by which approaches to problem solving are graded. Um, it's a monitoring and evaluation tool for the contributions that young people and organizations are making around the world towards ending all of these problems that the world faces. Okay, so these SDGs, there are a lot of problems in the world, but they found a way to classify or bring all the problems that we have in the world, the 1,001 problems we have in the world, into 17 specific categories or specific areas. And those are some of the areas they are going to be talking about. And like I said, 193 countries signed on to this plan, including Canada, which a lot of people want to go to, because it looks like now the US has become a little bit more difficult in terms of scholarship. So Canada is also becoming one of those places that are preferred, unless you are like going on a genius visa like the US, like Einstein visa, which is for really, really high intelligence, high skilled workers who can still go to the US to study. And there are still opportunities, but I'm just trying to say that it has become a little bit more difficult. But Canada is one of those places that is looking much more feasible, although it has become a little bit tricky as well, but not as bad as the US, I may say. And of course, Ghana is one of those countries that are signed onto the SDGs. Okay. And all of these countries in 2015 agreed that, hey, by 2030, this is where we want to be. By 2030, this is the stage in which we want to achieve. We want to solve or attempt to solve all of these problems. Okay. And funding was made available, and some of that funding is some of the money that goes towards scholarships. And those are some of the money that fund some of these opportunities for young people to go and study either their masters or their PhDs. Okay. So next, I just want to give you a snapshot of what the SDGs look like and what they are. So I talked about the 17 SDGs. Okay. Yes, please. I know these are not all the problems of the world, but the idea is that whatever the problem is, it falls generally under one of these things. So I want to assume that if you're on this call, if you're watching me, or you're interested in scholarships, you may have come across opportunities where they've asked you to, talk about your community work. They've asked you to talk about your volunteering. They've also asked you to talk about your impact work, like anything you've done that is impactful, that has changed people's lives. They've asked you to talk about it, basically. So these are the benchmark by which they will be grading you, or by which they will connect what you are doing. So whatever it is you're doing, you should be able to find something in these 17 SDGs that relates to that. Okay. So, and also it's a global call to action. When I say it's a global call to action, it's like, this is what we all want to do. Like, let's all rise up, let's all get up, let's all come together, and solve these problems. So it's a very important batch of problems that we are solving. Unfortunately, we've not made a lot of progress in the SDGs. Funding has been made available, but not all. A lot of things have changed. The pandemic alone in a year was able to wipe out a lot of like progress that has been made for like 10 years. It was wiped out in just 1 year, in just 2020. Education, like, it affected a lot of these SDG goals. So we are a little bit behind, very far behind. And unfortunately, we only have about 5 more years to the SDGs. But what this tells me is that because we have 5 more years to the SDGs, in the next couple of years, there should be more funding available, because organizations and institutions would like to make these funds available to young people to be able to apply to scholarships. So don't be surprised when new scholarships come up. When a scholarship you knew selected only 10 people a year, start selecting 20 people, because it's like we are running out of time and we need more efforts to solve these problems that the world, we've come together as a planet to identify. So please take a minute and look through all of these points, or I may call them goals as they are, and I'm sure you'll be able to identify or in your own time be able to read much more further into what these specific goals stand for. And some of them are very clear, from goal 1 to goal 5, 7, 8, 9. Like, some of them are really, really clear. The first goal is no poverty. Of course, like, poverty, there'll always be poverty, but there are levels to poverty. So yes, it will be impossible to eliminate poverty entirely, because yes, your standard of living may be better, but compared to others, you may be considered poor. So currently, I think the UN classifies anybody who is poor as somebody who spends, I think, $1.15 a day. So technically, if there's anybody who spends like the whole day, the only amount of money they have or they can't spend is, let's say, 12 cedis. Technically, if you are watching Act from Ghana, it means that person is technically poor. And this may mean that a lot of people may be considered not poor, which is a little bit extreme, but that is the figures that we are working with. So those are some of the targets and the goals that are under the SDGs. So please pay attention to them in your own time. Please take some time and read more about the SDGs and what they are. And all of these 17 SDGs can be classified into 5 main categories, which is the people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnerships. Okay. And we're going to be taking a look at that shortly. So, like I said, it's people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnerships. Okay. And each of these goals, as you can see on the right of my screen or my presentation, all 17 of the goals can be classified under these 5 categories. Okay. So I know, for instance, the Commonwealth scholarship sometimes comes this way. Although they are talking about the SDGs, they normally come and ask about which category your impact is under. So sometimes you may be a little bit confused whether it's under planet or it's under peace or it's under people. Okay. So this is to help you understand where your SDG goal that you're focusing on fits in. And you please know that you don't need to focus on just one SDG. You can focus on all 17 at a time. You can focus on 1 at a time. You can focus on 2 at a time. It doesn't really matter, as long as you are making contributions that we are about to talk about towards solving these problems that we have in the world. Okay. And like I said, this is a small picture that shows you basically what these categories mean or stand for. Okay. Yes. So let's talk more about the SDGs. And yes, since 2015, like I said, there have been some progresses. But if you look at this description that I put here, the iceberg, or let's say the tip of the iceberg, is the only part that you can see above this line, which is, more visible. So majority of the iceberg, this iceberg that you are seeing, is under the water. So majority of the progress we have made, is underwater, basically, or technically. And yes, we've made some, improvements. We've made some changes. Things have changed in terms of poverty, in terms of education, health. People have better access to internet, better access to education, and so on and so forth. But we are still left with a lot more to do. And that is the opportunity for scholarship or potential scholarship recipients, basically. There's still more to do. There's still more ideas to come up with. There's still more impacts that we can generate as young people. And that is what scholarship agencies are looking for. Okay. And please know that every scholarship is tied to the SDGs. Sometimes they don't go outright and mention that this is what SDG is your impact tied to. They may just ask you, tell us about your community work. in your response, that is where you should try and tie these impacts that you've had, contributions, interactions in terms of the SDGs, development work, and volunteering to the SDGs. Okay. So yes, they may not ask you whether you're working on SDG goal 2, okay, or SDG goal 1, but you can go ahead and mention it. You can go ahead and say that you have made significant progress. You've added on to the contribution to eradicating poverty, to making sure that people have good health, access to education is secure, there's gender equality. You could make all of those arguments, okay? So it's really, really important for us to keep this in mind. And like I said, since 2015, there have been key successes in reducing extreme poverty and improving access to education and health. However, significant challenges remain, including climate change, inequality, and conflict. And I think conflict is one of the main thing. In the last 3 years, there have been, I think, about 3 different wars, and one is just starting, recently, So there's a lot of conflict in the world. And I think it's very important for us to keep in mind all of these things as well when we are applying to scholarships, because scholarship agencies also want students and recipients to be knowledgeable around the world. They want you to tell us or tell them why you getting the opportunity to study will impact more people than than ever. So it's like a numbers game. So what they are basically trying to do is trying to understand that why should we help, or why should we fund Kofi instead of Kwame? Or why should we fund applicant A instead of applicant B? Okay, applicant A will be able to impact 500 people. Applicant B will be able to impact 100 people. Fine. One has more impact than the other. But over the long term, would applicant B have more impact than applicant A? So the fact that maybe you did a program or you did something that impacted, let's say, 10,000 people, 1,000 people, does not mean that you become a favorite for the scholarship. No, it's all about quantifying your impact, demonstrating that you may have done this today, and these are the future potential for all of these actions that you have been making. Okay. Then I just want to talk about why the SDGs matter to scholarship bodies. And that's what I started talking about briefly before I jump to this slide. And you have to know that it's an alignment with global priorities. Like I said, the SDGs are a global call to action. 193 countries signed onto it. So the Canada you want to go to, the US you want to go to, the Germany you want to go to, the Switzerland, the France, the Netherlands, the Australia, the New Zealand, the Turkey, all of those countries you want to go to have signed on to the fact that they want to pursue the SDGs. So if you are applying to England as well, yes, I forgot to mention England, of course, and the UK. If you are applying to a national scholarship, let's say Shivlin Scholarship, or let's say the Australian scholarship or the New Zealand scholarships, you must know for a fact that they would ask you about the SDGs. Sometimes they are very clear. They ask what are the implications or the impact of the SDGs that your actions are having. Sometimes they don't come out right, okay? But you must know that if you are applying to a national scholarship, it is a no-brainer. It is a priority for these countries, okay? And even if it's a scholarship agency, let's say like that, and even that DAD or DAAD, which I call that all the time. I know I may be pronouncing it wrong, but that is affiliated to Germany. Whether it is Commonwealth, whether it's Chevening, whether it's the McCall McBain from Canada, it may not tie to be, it may be tied to a country, but it's administered by a scholarship body. They still ask about your impact to the SDGs, to the goals. How are you making some of these inroads? Okay. Then the SDGs also provides an opportunity to demonstrate your leadership potential and your civic responsibility. Like I said, scholarship bodies and agencies want applicants that are knowledgeable about the world, that are curious about what is happening in other places. that are thinking about how their actions in one place affect other people in another. Okay. So they want to understand that why, if we fund you or we support your application or your scholarship, and you, let's say, come up with a solution to ending gender equality or gender inequality, would that just impact Ghana, or it will impact Africa and the world as well? So they also want to tell you, well, they also want you to tell them that it is not just Ghana that you are looking at. It's not just, oh, whatever I'm working on, or the work that I'm doing, or the NGO that I'm working with, or the nonprofit that we are working on, or the idea that we're working on can, help end Ghana's problems to A, B, C, D. They also want to understand that, is that thing applicable to other parts of the world? Because replication is very, very important. To be able to replicate these solutions is an important part of scholarships as well. Then, of course, the third one will be mission-based outlook. Okay. They said two cannot move together unless they agree. Okay. So who you are and what the institution is needs to go together. They need to see you as a partner. They need to see themselves in you. They need to see that you see yourself in them. And it's like a partnership you are going into. There is something they have that you want, and there's something you have that you want. And you realize that if you apply to scholarships, sometimes they ask you two questions. The first question is that, what are you looking to get out of the institution or the scholarship, or being a participant of the program? Like, what are you going to get out of it? That's the first question. So they want to see that, okay, there's some value that you've identified. And sometimes the generic, I've had the opportunity to read some of these applications, some people's essays, and I've also written essays, so I know about this. Sometimes the responses are a little bit generic. Oh, because of the school, the atmosphere, because of your history. Like, those are the things which are good, they're not bad, but they also want to see something they've not thought about, a value you've identified that they have not identified. So, for instance, you can say, okay, so I know your materials science department is working on a solution or a problem to like a solving, let's say, shortage of, I don't know, materials. Let's just say that. I'm not a scientist, so I can't really use the terms like that. If Baba and I think Lois were here, I think they can give you more accurate examples in a chat. So you can say, okay, your department or this professor is working on this. I did a research 2 years ago that arrived at this conclusion. I believe that if I'm able to work with that professor, we'll be able to push this research in a different direction. And I've seen, okay, you are not concentrating on this part of research. I feel like it is important that, you have somebody on your staff or in your school that is looking at this angle of research, because data shows those are the things, like they want you to tell them something they've not realized. And those are the things that show that you've thought about it. You mean what you are saying. You are really who you are, like that you are passionate about a thing, instead of oh, I like the school. It is 100-year-old school. These people went to the school. Kofi Annan went there. Barack Obama went there. ABCD went there. All of those things are great, but they want something better. Then the other question I was talking about is, the first one is the one that they are asking you, what are you going to get? Then the next one is that, what are you bringing to them? Okay, so we realize that you don't have an inclusive community, or I've realized that your community lacks something. So something that an experience you've had, a skill you have, an expertise you have, that they don't have on campus, or it's not clear that they have, or they are missing, that it's a value you are bringing, your years of experience in something, your unique perspective to our approach to things. Let's say it's a university in Canada, and they don't have a lot of Africans, and they are trying to recruit more Africans into the university. You could go there and say, yeah, you are coming from an African background. You understand how young people in Africa think. You understand what young people want, okay, like what they need, the problems they are trying to solve, the problems they are having with applying to schools in Canada. So it's like all of these things. So IELTS. So you may go and say, okay, can we advocate to make IELTS, like, yes, keep your IELTS, but can we offer something else? Can we offer a letter that says that, we were taught in English, or like Ghana, that sort of thing. So it's one of those things that you need to think about. And you can only do this if you've actually thought about what you're trying to do. Or like if yeah, you see, so it's not something people can write. Someone can write it for you, but like when it comes from you, if they can feel the zeal, the passion in your application, and that's the most important thing. Okay, so please know that these are the points that you should know about why SDGs matter in the first place to scholarship agencies. Okay, and please keep these 3 points in mind. Okay, it aligns with global priorities. It's as an opportunity to showcase leadership and civic responsibility, and it's also mission-based outlook. Okay, for the institution and also for the applicants. So let's go to the second part so that we can get into questions. So the second part is going to be on development work. Okay, we've talked about the SDGs. I know that I'm going to make an analogy right now. To do development work, you need an understanding of the SDGs. To understand the SDGs, you need to do a lot of volunteering to understand the SDGs and the impact you are making into them. Or to understand the SDGs, you need to do development work. To do volunteering, you need to understand the SDGs or come from a development background. So there are 3 things, but they are in like a subset or like a Venn diagram. Yes, let's do some math. They are in a Venn diagram where they all intersect or they all touch each other. Okay, and you are in the middle. That middle point is you. And development work and volunteering and the SDGs, they all come together to make you a good applicant or an applicant that stands out. Okay, and let's note that you need all 3. Okay, but in different ranges. So SDGs, you need to have some experience in the SDGs, of work in the SDGs. Volunteering work, you can do volunteering work without development work. It's not compulsory that you need to go and do development work, but once you have the SDG knowledge and you've done some volunteering, it's good. Once you've done some development work and you've done some volunteering, it's good. When you've done some SDG and you've done some development work, it's also good. So it's like you don't need all 3, but you need at least 2. Okay, I hope that is clear. Please keep that in mind. If you have any more questions on that, please put it in a chat. Write it somewhere. When we get to the questions section, you can ask. So, what is development work? Development work basically encompasses efforts aimed at improving the living conditions of people globally. This includes policy initiatives, humanitarian aid, educational programs, healthcare improvements, and infrastructure development. So development work is basically anything you do to improve the lives of people. Anything at all that organizations do. So so the difference between development work and volunteering is that development work needs or thrives like in an organization. When I say it thrives in an organization, it doesn't mean a company or an NGO. It just means that when it is organized, when there are forms to fill, when there are processes to follow, we call it development work. It's like formal. Okay, let's do that. The formal part of it is development work. The informal is volunteering. So volunteering, you can volunteer anytime. Like you don't need to, sometimes you don't even need to apply. Okay, development work, you may need to apply to a program, to an institution. Like you may need to be part of like an organization. It's a prim and proper kind of thing. You need to be, a certain way. You need to have a certain experience. You need to have a certain value, that sort of thing. That's development work. But volunteering can be done any day. Volunteering can even be you standing at one point in the road and helping people to cross the road. That's volunteering. And somebody can use just that, helping people cross roads to get a scholarship. It all depends on how you write it and what you did after. So it's not like you're just helping people cross a road. So it's a problem we identified that people are not able to cross the road at that point, or the road or the urban planning has a problem at that point. So you help people cross the road for a time. Then what do you do to make that problem go away? Because you can't be there solving that problem all the time. Do you get it? So it's like, then you wrote to the assembly, wrote to the ministry, you advocated, you pull people together. A good example for something like that is the bus stop boys. Those guys are not paid, although they get, gifts and stuff. They are not paid. If you are part of Bus Stop Boys, that is like a great opportunity if you are able to write it properly to get a scholarship. Those are some of the things that are volunteering. So Bus Stop Boys, you don't need to write an application to them. Once you go and they are cleaning, you can join them. That is volunteering. But to do development work in, let's say, the UN, you need to apply. You can't just walk in. So that's the difference between the two. We'll get to volunteering very soon. But let's continue with development work. Then let's look at the foundations of development work, which I talked about. I mentioned these 5 foundations basically, and please take a few seconds to look at what they mean. I know they are very clear. What policy initiatives are, what humanitarian aid is, what education programs are, what healthcare improvements are, and infrastructure development as well. So these are the foundations of development work. Every part or every type of development agency or organization falls under one of these things. So it's either they are providing educational programs. Let's say, I'm blanking on some of these educational, let's say, okay, World Vision, I think, is health. World Vision is health. There are some other ones, you could say them, or let's say infrastructure, there's this this organization called, I think, Solidad or Solidarat, something. I don't know. I'm messing up the name. You can check out those ones later. Humanitarian aid is, normally the UN, the organizations that go into war-torn, or UNICEF, that sort of thing. Healthcare improvements, like, there are also organizations that focus on providing governments with money. So USAID, all of those organizations, those are the foundations of development work, basically. Then I just wanted to talk about getting involved into development work. There are 2 ways of getting development work. There are small ways of doing it, and there are big ways of doing it. Let's look at small ways. So the top 3 that came into my head is cleanups, tutoring, and awareness campaigns. So cleanups, that's Bus Stop Boys, okay? You can, those are the, the local stuff you do in your communities. Those are the things you do to keep your communities a certain way, in check, making your communities safe, okay? Tutoring, are you on pro bono basis, like for free, helping people, providing educational support, like, programs, teaching people something like a new skill? Those are some of the small ways to get involved in development work. And because they are the small ways, they kind of resemble volunteering. So please don't confuse the two. I know these things look like volunteering, but that is how it is. That's why they are small ways. Okay, they are all development work, but they are small ways. These are the low touch points that you can do from your house. You can do online. You don't need to register anything. You don't need to start anything. You can go online and be pushing for, anti-galamsey campaigns, whatever, kill the bill, like whatever it is that you're doing to create awareness online. It could be digital, it could be in person, it could be a protest. It depends on what you are okay with. So these are some of the small ways to get involved in development work. And I put a small note on this presentation, and I said, remember to align your work with the SDGs. So in all, don't forget what I started with, the SDGs. That's the foundation. I'll show you a small graph that puts the SDGs like under as the foundation of all of these things. Okay, so these are the small ways to get involved in development work alone. Okay, they look like volunteering because they are small. That's why they are small. Then let's look at the big ways to get involved. So there's the NGO involvement, there's the development program involvement, and there's the local projects. Okay, so active participation in NGOs for global development impact. I'll say the team at DYG is a clear example of some of these NGO involvement. Okay, and one tip is you can either join an existing NGO or non-profit organization that is really doing great things and write about it in your essays, or you create your own. And I think creating your own is much more preferred. Why? Let me explain. When you volunteer, or let's say when you work as a team member at DYG, there are other people you need to convince when you have new ideas. or there are other people responsible for other parts of the work that you do. So let's say when you play a part in this Scholarship 101 series, and 10 people at the end of the year get scholarships, you may have been the one who designed the flyers. You may have been the one who put together the sessions. You may have been the one who did the social media, all of those things. You played a part, but you did not have a lot. You can't have a lot more influence than the person who started the NGO or the one who created the NGO. Okay. So when you create your own NGO, you have much more influence over things. The reason being that they want people who have influence. Shivnin, there's a whole essay on influence. Okay. There's a whole essay on leadership and influence. They just want to know that you are somebody, or you've had an opportunity to influence change in something. You've had the opportunity to influence something being done one way to be done another way, or consider another way of doing things. That is why creating your own NGO that focuses on a specific problem is much more better than I think than joining an existing one. Because in an existing one, you may have some influence, but not a lot. Okay. So creating your own is like you call the shots yourself. Okay. So that's one big part of getting involved in development work. And I feel like you should all consider either one of the two options, because no matter what you do, if you really want to win a scholarship, like a well-funded scholarship, not a scholarship that pays for your fees and leaves you to cater for your, let's say, accommodation. If you want a scholarship that pays from A to Z, even gives you money for relocating to the country that you are going to study in. These are some of the things they want. They don't just want anybody, unfortunately. This is not to discourage, but there's always an experience you've had that you may not have quantified it. I'm sure you have you've joined some church, your church, you did some orphanage donation, you did some cleanup. There's always something. It's just that we forget, we don't document it. We don't think those things are important, so we don't write about them. But if you are a skilled writer and you are able to like articulate the experience and how it made you feel and the realization it gave you or the insight it gave you, you can always use all of those small impacts or the small involvement in things to win a scholarship. Then the next thing is development programs. So engaging in fully funded programs or sustainable community growth programs also helps. So examples of these things are the UNICEF, the UNDP, the UNFPA fellowships and programs. Okay. And I know that for these development programs, some of them are online. There are some internship opportunities that are online with these UNICEF, UNDP, and UNFPA. UNFPA Ghana, I know, has a fellowship called the YOLI. It's YOLE, YOLI Fellowship. And a lot of people go through that. So if you are here and you are considering how to get into development work, I think you should consider that it's done right here in Ghana. It's like it's like a training program sort of thing, and you can always use that experience to write scholarship, like an application or an essay, and how it made you feel, the insights you got out of it. There is also the YALI, the Kofi Annan fellowships. There's the Barack Obama one, there's the US Embassy one. There are so many like fellowships and programs. Okay. UNICEF even has one that I know recently recruited people or got new people in. Basically, you just need to search for these things or go onto their websites, go onto their social media, turn on your notifications for some of these organizations. And I know like social media is very important. Like you can't always be checking, but once you follow these accounts and you turn on like notification for their posts, when they post about it, you hear about it. And now social media has advanced so much that the more you search about certain specific topics, the more they come onto your feed. So the more you search about scholarships and some of these opportunities, when they come up automatically, when you go on TikTok, you find them. When you go on Twitter, you find them, which is X now. You go on Facebook, you find them. Okay, so Instagram, some of them are on Instagram as well. So please keep this in mind. It's very, very important to do this. Then there is local projects. So what local projects are is basically another big way to get involved in development work. And this is basically community engagement, community innovation, driving community. It's like a club. It is not an NGO technically. It's just a group of people who are like-minded on a specific topic that agree on, let's say, this is something we value, So I put some examples here. Road tracks. There's Global Shapers. Global Shapers, unfortunately, only accepts people from 21 to 27. So if you are 30-year-old like me, unfortunately, Global Shapers, you are too old for Global Shapers technically, and they are in Ghana. I'm just giving examples of some of these communities and that you can join. That if you search for them, you'll be able to like join and build enough experience in development work to make a difference in your scholarship applications. Okay, so development work and scholarships. We talked about why the SDGs are important. So now let's talk about why development work and scholarships, what the cross section is, where the connection is, okay? So your involvement in development work is very crucial to your scholarship chances, okay? Why? It shows impact and responsibility. It shows that you have done something impactful, or you have been part of something impactful, and you have been responsible, or you feel responsible for either a specific issue, a specific problem, a specific solution, something. It shows that you are basically responsible. You have follow through. When you apply for an opportunity or you volunteer, you don't go for just 2 days and you stop. It shows that when they give you the scholarship, it's a 13-month scholarship, it's a 16-month scholarship, it's a 2-year scholarship. They know that you won't come 6 months later and tell them that you can't go you can't do it. So it just shows that you show a track record of follow through. You can Google that, what that means. Like following through is like starting something from start or finishing something, basically. It just shows that you are a finisher. It shows that you're not going to waste their money, basically. Then another reason too is that it connects academic goals to real life needs. So when you're involved in development work and you're going to do your master's or a PhD, you won't just go and do a master's in any random topic. You go and do it because of real life experiences you've had. That's when you went on the field, you realized that you didn't know what MNE was, or MNEL, which is monitoring, evaluation, and learning. It is, a tool that we use to evaluate whether some of these solutions, some of these problems you are trying to solve, and the approaches we are taking are even working. You realize that, you have no idea what MEL is, monitoring, evaluation, and learning. So when you monitor, you evaluate, and you get learnings out of it, okay? Some call it MNE, but the new term now is monitoring, evaluation, and learning, okay? Because you need to learn out of the results that you've gotten. It shows that you worked in this organization, you work as a UNICEF fellow, or you worked as a Rotract member, and you saw that, okay, when you took books to places, or you were running a book club or a reading club or something, you realize that kids were not able to do ABCD. So you want to study this course so that you can have expertise in this, so you can go back to the thing you were doing. But this time, because you've learned the thing, you can now respond much more better, or you are now more prepared to address those issues and questions that the people you were serving were having. That is all it is. So they just want to also see that you're not just coming to study what's a random course I can say. Let's say sustainable development because it's a scholarship opportunity. It's coming from a real place of experience. You are studying it because that is the work you've been doing, and you've realized that there is a gap that needs to be filled. So you've identified a gap that you want to fill. That is why in maybe your personal self, like your professional side, your career, you've realized there's a gap between your knowledge and your experience. So you are trying to close that gap by winning the scholarship and studying the course, and closing that gap so that you can able to do the work. Okay. Then finally, it demonstrates long-term commitment to change. This can be explained in two. The first one is something I've already talked about. Long-term commitment to change. It means that you are a finisher. You follow through. You're not going to start and stop. You're going to start and finish. Whatever you start, you finish. That is who you are. Then the other meaning you can also take from it demonstrates long-term commitment to change is that it means that you did not decide 6 months ago that you want to japa. I'm sorry. You did not decide 6 months ago that, oh, you want to change your scenery, you want to change your location, you want to change your environment. So you want to use a scholarship to go. It shows that you have been doing this work for a year. You have been contributing to improving the percentage of young rural children in Ghana who can read, let's say, class 6 level books. It shows that you did not start a month ago. Not to say that if you started a month ago, you can't apply to a scholarship. But I'm just saying that when you have a track record, they feel much better to hand you a scholarship than someone who started a month ago, because your priorities might change in a month. Your findings might change. But if you've been working in development work, let's say providing education to rural children for, let's say, 5 years, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and the same problem you realized in your first year, it is the same problem you are still encountering in your third year. It means that you have been working on like one specific thing or two specific things or one specific area or one specific solution for a long time. So you know what you're talking about. You know what you mean. You know why it's not working. You've tried different things. You've done what you can do, but now there's the need that you need to get more reinforcement. You need to get more learning, more training, that sort of thing. Okay. And this is not to say that if you don't have all of these things, you can't win a scholarship. I'm just saying that it's easier to write. Like, it's easier to write about an actual job you did in, let's say, in UNICEF than trying to spin, let's say, when you were a cupboard boy in, let's say, class 3 or sorry, in, let's say, JHS 3, or SS. Like something you did in SHS is much more easier to spin those actual career professional experiences than those, other things that you did. It's much more easier. That's all that I'm trying to say. Okay. So, I just want to also show you how to present your development work effectively. I'll show you in 2 phases. The first one is that you need to quantify impacts. Use numbers. Like 20 people attended the program, 15 signed up, 10 people ended up getting the money, 5 people came back, 2 people, like they need numbers. So whatever you do, you need to keep the numbers. You need to put numbers in there. Don't just say we did a program and this is what happened. No, you did a program. You over a 3-day program in this specific place for, let's say, 60 hours worth of work on a specific topic, and it was attended by 200 people, and 150 of them came back for the second day or became repeats audiences or engagers of your work, and 100 of them have now started their own businesses, and out of those 100, 50 of them have employed 2 people each. That makes indirect beneficiaries of your intervention 500. Like, those are the things. Use numbers. Like, you sell yourself. Like, pat yourself on the back. Like, this is a recording. I can't say what I really want to say, but like talk your work up. Like, talk your game. Like, whatever it is. Like, not brag, but like find a way to, brag but not brag. I don't know how you're gonna do it, but like, you need to. Don't feel like, oh, you're bragging or you are being too arrogant or you are doing too known, as we say in Ghana. Like, talk about the impact of what you did. And it doesn't necessarily have to be what you did, but it can be something you were part of. So it doesn't mean that you need to be the CEO or the founder or something, but you were part of a group that went to clean a certain place that has now reduced the amount of flooding in a specific area because of the cleaning you did. That has now saved 200 lives and reduced malaria cases by 20%. Those are the things. So quantify your impact. That's the most important thing. And when you're quantifying your impact, be prepared to answer follow-up questions. Because when you throw around percentages. How do you arrive at 20%? Okay, you arrive at 20% because we checked with the local hospital, and since the time we did the 6 months since we did the intervention or the cleanup, the number of people who come to the hospital reporting malaria have reduced. And that is where most of the flood water used to sit, and it was breeding mosquitoes. And these people are the people who live, like, find a way to say this in one sentence. Okay. And it's like clear that what you did had some impact, and you're not just giving yourself percentages, but it's a percentage that you have calculated, from asking around or from what data you have collected it from. And that's the thing. The second thing to present your development work effectively is to highlight your leadership. Highlight your role. So your role may have been the one who brought people food. Your role may have been the one who collected the tools after they finished. But talk about it. So because of what you did, you made sure that each person who came to clean the place had tools. There was no point where they couldn't get a cutlass. There was no risks. Like, you managed the situation. Okay, you had 100 volunteers and you only had 10 cutlasses, let's say. Okay, so what you came up with is that, okay, you were running shifts. Okay, so 10 people will use the cutlass and they will hand over the cutlass to the next batch, and the other batch who used it the first will now move on to doing something else. Efficiency. Like, what did you do? So it doesn't really matter what you did. It's just about how you sold the thing. So you don't need to be the one who came up with the idea. You don't need to be the one who provided the money. All you need to be is be part of the people who did the thing. And that is all it is. And please document your work. Take pictures. Like, write about it on social media. When you go to a program, write about it. Because now I'm sure some of you heard, or most of you heard, the US Embassy is checking social media. Scholarship agencies have been checking social media for a long time. I work in development work. We run fellowship programs. I am one of the people who reads people's applications to some of the programs that the Melton Foundation works on. Sometimes the applicants are too many that you have two people who are really good and you need to make a decision on one. I just go on social media and I type in one person's name, their social media comes up, either their LinkedIn, their Twitter or something. You go on Twitter and you see that this person is, let's say, expressing a view that is really, really like bad. Not that a view that you don't agree with, but a view that we all as a people, like, we all agree that this is bad. Like, this is not a good view to have, or like, this is not a good point or position to have. It makes it easier. So don't leave anything to chance. Like, clean up your social media. Document your work. Like, don't just put anything. Some jokes are funny. Like, there are things you like and some things you retweet and reshare and all of those things that are funny and all. But like, after a while, they stop being funny. Okay, like they lose taste. Like they are out of taste. Like they're not funny anymore. Something that used to be funny. Like child abuse. Like stories of how the kind of punishments our parents used to give us when we were young. You can't do that now to some of the kids or even any child. I'm not going to say some of the kids. Some of the punishments were pure like child abuse cases waiting to happen. Okay, so those are some of the things, like things that are not funny anymore. You need to look at your social media and clean it up. Okay, it's not hiding who you are, but I think people's ideas of things change. You are a different person than you were yesterday. Today, you are learning something that will make you a better person for tomorrow. So the kind of ideas you have today, you are allowed to grow. You're allowed to change as a person. You're allowed to change your mind. Like, you're allowed to change your opinions on certain issues and things. So once your opinion changes on something and you have something documenting your old opinion, take it down, remove it, delete it. Like, it doesn't say that's not you anymore. And that's what it is. Okay. Then the last one is reflect alignment. Explain how your work supports the specific SDGs. This is the thing I've been saying. Like, so all the thing you did, what SDG does it fall under? And you can make a mistake choosing the right SDG. And you can also make a mistake, even when you choose the right SDG, you are not able to connect it properly. So yes, you were doing something about a reading club. Okay. It is connected clearly to quality education. That is not enough. Let me tell you. Just connecting the your work you did to the specific SDG is not enough. Now, under each of those SDGs, if you read further, there are targets. So under quality education, there are targets like, let's say, 50% or 80% of children in rural areas must develop the ability to read by this time. Teachers, so those targets, especially in education, there are targets for students, there are targets for the number of schools that should come up, there are targets for the number of like different, like all aspects of education, teachers, schools, students, even people who produce stuff for like education, like, so now textbooks should change, like textbooks, people who, all of those things are part. So it's not just about connecting it to the SDG. You need to check under the target, and now you are able to specify, delve down into the specific targets under the SDGs. Okay, so it's not just enough to say that your impact aligns with SDG 3 or SDG 4. Under what specific target or under what specific thing? What specifically did you do under that specific SDG? That's the thing. Okay, so you need to keep that in mind. It's very, very important for you to do that. Then I want us to look at this depiction or pictorial presentation of presenting your development work effectively. How do you get from here, unimpactful presentation, lacking quantified impact, to here, impactful presentation, clearly shows quantified impact? This is where you need to, the journey you need to go on. Okay? And these are the things I've already talked about. Quantify your impact, highlight your leadership, and reflect your SDG alignment, basically. It's very, very important. Okay, so that you do that. So those are some of the things that I've been talking about, basically. So next, we need to look at the last SDG, okay, which is volunteering. That is very, very important that we look at volunteering. Okay, so volunteering, like I said, SDG is the underlining element under volunteering as well. Why does volunteering matter? It shows empathy. It shows that you have empathy for people, for other people that are disadvantaged. You are not just someone who is heartless, okay? You care. It shows teamwork, because most volunteering opportunities do not happen in a vacuum, do not happen alone. You need a team, you need to work with people. You need to work with people you don't know. All of you just volunteered and they just gave you something to do together. So you need to find a way of working together as well. Then it also shows leadership, because when you are put together in a group that you guys should figure out this thing of you are volunteering on a specific thing, you need to come out as a leader, or somebody needs to lead something. Somebody needs to lead some aspect, okay? Then finally, it shows commitment. It shows that you are happy doing something for free. You are happy doing something not because it benefits you in any way. You're happy to spend your time and your resources to travel all the way to another region to go and help students there gain more understanding into how to use the internet, how to use tools, how to use AI, robotics. So, like, it just shows that you are committed to a cause. Okay. And of course, SDGs is the basis of everything. It naturally, like anything you do under volunteering naturally supports the global goals of the world. So that is very, very important for you to keep in mind. Then let's look at the volunteer impact cycle. What you're seeing basically is the process in which a volunteer goes through, or as a volunteer, you can go through. The first one, okay, engage yourself, engage the youth. Volunteering engages the youth. It encourages young people to participate, to contribute, to get involved, basically. The next thing is that it contributes to something. It contributes to health, education, climate change. It contributes like a community need initiative. It enhances opportunities for other people. Then 3, when you are a volunteer who has been engaged, that has contributed to health, education, and climate action, you are able to provide lived experiences. Okay. So when you're talking about something like a project you actually did, it's way easier. It's much more comfortable to talk about something you actually did, a program you were actually at. So imagine that somebody asks you to tell you an event you attended. When you are narrating an event that you attended, and we are narrating an event that somebody attended and the person told you, those two narrations, when the ones that you were there, you are able to narrate it much better than the one that you heard about. Okay. So that those are some of the two different like positions, okay, about it provides lived experience. It's a source material, source inspiration for your why. Okay. So why are you doing the thing? Why, like, let's say, so that volunteering opportunity, why were you doing it? How did you do it? Who did you do it with? When did you do it? Okay. So now the what if, and at this third point is that what if people in that place where you went to volunteer had more access to something? Or what if you are able to get this scholarship? What will you do? What more can you do? So that what if is like, I've done all of this. Imagine what I can do with more training or more insight. So it's like, if I was able to do this when I had 5 CDs, imagine what I can do when I have 20 CDs. That's the whole thing about volunteering and how to tell your volunteering impact story. Okay. Then finally, it's also an opportunity for you to showcase impact. The qualitative, quantitative, descriptive, narrative point of views. Okay. So you're able to qualify it, quantify it, describe it, and narrate all of these things. So, like I said earlier, be prepared for follow-up questions. When you actually did the thing and they ask a follow-up question, you are not really worried because you did the thing. So you can always tell more things about how the thing went, more information about how it made you feel, the impact it gave to people, the things people told you privately, the comments people gave that are not in any reports. Okay. And you're able to write all of these things in your essays, in your motivational letters, and your personal statements. So it is very, very important that you keep this in mind. Okay. It's very, very important that you keep this in mind. So let's move on briefly. Then finally, to recap, it's very important for you to understand the SDGs and how they connect to your passions. Okay. Understanding the SDGs, what they are, what they mean, what they are focusing on, and how they connect to what you are working on is really, really important. Then start small with community service awareness campaigns. Like, you don't need to start small technically, but if you can't do anything at all, start small. Okay. Reflect on your impact and personal growth. Don't just volunteer for volunteering's sake. When you volunteer, you personally, you aside the fact that you are writing to a scholarship, what did you get out of it? Not money. I don't mean money, but I mean that did your perception of how people are living in other places change? Did your perception of how privileged you are? And you please understand this and add this to your scholarship applications as well. Talking about your privilege. The fact that you wake up and you don't need to think about where you get water to bath. A lot of us in Accra and areas where water flows frequently don't think about this. Like, you don't even give it a second thought. The fact that you are privileged enough to have access to internet, like, you don't need to climb a tree. If you need to make a single call, like, there are people who can only make calls in certain areas in Ghana within specific times. They can only call you between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. Just 2 hours. Within those two windows, if they don't call or a call has not come through, you won't get them. There are people like in the same country that are going to write the BEC, the WASI, they're going to the same universities that are coming from these areas. So there's a lot of privilege that you've had as well. So reflect on your impact and your personal growth, how your opinions have changed, how it has changed you as a person, how much more you've gained more empathy for people. Okay, you've understood that, okay, you are coming from a place of privilege. and you need to give back that privilege. All of those things count. Okay. Then another important thing is to track your development and volunteer contributions for documentation. Like this is something we don't do a lot. We don't do enough. We don't do much. No matter how small it is, track it. Like, okay, on this date you attended this event, or you attended this thing, or you did this thing. Even if I'm speaking to you and you are working. I know some of us are working. It's the same thing about when we are writing our CVs. When you trying to get a job, you update your CV. Your CV is always up to date. The only time you update your CV is when you are trying to leave that job to another job. That is when you now start saying that, oh, okay, in the last year or the last 2 years that I've been working in this company, what have I done? What can I put on my CV that will sell me? Like that sort of thing. It's because from day to day, you don't document the things you did in a week of that job. You don't need to write down what you did every day, but at least every 2 weeks, every month, what did you do this month that you can put on your CV? What targets did you meet? What deadlines did you meet? What did you do? What actions did you take that you can put on your CV? So that by the time when you want to leave that job, you already have like a list of 15 things that you are going to put on your CV. Then your only problem will not be what should I write? It should rather be which one should I write? Or which one should I put on paper? Or which one should I explain further? Okay. So those are some of the things that you should do. Then 5, include metrics, duration, and leadership roles. Like, don't just volunteer for volunteering's sake. Yes, you're a volunteer, but you can always take leadership in something. You can always like be good at something, even when you're volunteering. Offer some value, like be a leader in something that when you're not around, people will say, oh, if Eric was here, this would have been done quicker. If Eric was here, this would have been done already. Oh, so is this how important Eric's role is? It's because when you play a role that people don't think about and people don't really value, when you're not there and somebody else has to do it, and the person is not doing it as you used to do it, then the people around you or the people in that community or that organization will see that, okay, it's important that we have this person or somebody like this person. Okay. It's very, very important. Then number 6, which is the final one, is to emphasize purpose and long-term goals. Like in Chido saying, in Krakran is saying, like, so all this thing that I've said has been speaking for like, let's say an hour, 30 minutes, which is a long time. All these things I've said, what is the use? What like, what is it? Like, okay, you've told us all the things, like, what is the purpose of it? You need to emphasize the purpose and the long-term goals. The whole reason why you are shouting, give me a scholarship, is because there are some girls in some rural area, there are some girls somewhere, there are some boys somewhere, there's a community somewhere that would not benefit from you, or that stands to lose something, okay, or that would lose out on the long-term impact if you're not able to meet those academic goals or career and professional goals. Okay, so it's very, very important to emphasize the purpose of this and the long-term goal. The long-term goal is really, really important. Like I told you that they are happy, they are okay with you telling them how whatever you're working on or whatever its impact you're having affects the community now. But they want to know what you're working on. Can it benefit more people than the community it was designed for? Okay. So that's the most important thing, long-term goals. And I would say that has been some of the problems of the SDGs so far. Because I mentioned at the beginning of this session that we have 5 more years to the end of the SDGs. It's supposed to end in 2030. So in 2030, the UN will come together again and they may change the SDGs. So I think some of you may know the Millennium Development Goals, MDGs. Then they became the SDGs. Okay, so they can do 2 things. They can either extend and add new things to the current SDGs, maybe make them 20 instead of 17, then continue with the same SDGs or in a different form. or they could change them entirely, or they could change them to give them a different name because they feel like sustainable development goals does not clearly reflect the name of the collection of problems that we have. Okay, so it's very, very important that you keep this in mind. Long-term goal, long-term plan. It's very, very important. And at this point, we've come to the end of my presentation. At this point, I would invite all of us on the call, either on Zoom or either watching from Facebook, to leave your comments. The recording of this session would, of course, be uploaded to YouTube. You could always rewatch it. You could always come back to it. You could always refer to it. But at this point, I would like to hear your reflections, and I would like to also hear your questions. So if you have any personal reflections that you want to share, if you have any specific questions you want to ask, please go ahead and ask. I'm checking the chat now, and I could see one question I've not read already, but I'm just trying to see. It says, if I am someone who has involved myself in several community engagement projects for so many years now, but I haven't been sharing them on LinkedIn, and I'm now seeing the importance of these projects and how I would have placed myself at an advantage point by posting them. What do I do? Okay, so basically what you're asking is that for a number of years now, you've been doing these things and you've not documented it. LinkedIn doesn't have like it has a timeline, of course, but it doesn't have like a deadline by which you can post things. Okay, so it's how you write it. So yes, of course, change your profile picture. Like, LinkedIn is very posh. You can, get a very good profile picture and say, you can write, people do that all the time, reflecting on my work in the last 5 years. These are some of, like, I remember in 2018, and here are the pictures. Then you come back again and you're like, okay, in 2019, you can, so all those things, if you have the pictures, you have the experiences written down, you don't need pictures per se, but like on LinkedIn and those other platforms, when there's a picture attached, it's easier for people to, read your post. If you just put down words, sometimes people will skip it or people would not see it. So what you need to do is that always have some picture. It doesn't need to be a picture of you or what you were doing, but some picture. It could be a picture of a cat. It could be a picture of like a building or whatever it is. Add some picture and write about it. Like, present it as a sort of recounting, reminiscing of years, what you've been doing in the years, and looking forward to doing more, like, giving yourself like a call to action to start doing more sort of thing. So you've not lost the opportunity. You can still do it. Okay, you don't need to do that per se. You could start doing it going forward. That's fine. But you can start doing it now and calling back to all of those things. You can even go as far as tagging people that you worked with in those projects in the past. It's just building a record, a digital record of yourself. Okay, an avatar, a digital persona of yourself online, that it makes it easy for people to search your name. So when you search your own name, what comes up? I'm sure because many of us here may not be celebrities, we may not have a lot of articles written about us. The main thing that comes up when you search any of us will be on social media or LinkedIn, because we don't write articles. We may not have been on news stories. We are not famous. So when you type our name, those things will not come up. But for us, for scholarship applicants or students or young people now starting their careers, those are the things that come up, your social media. So if those are the things that come up, please present yourself properly. Present yourselves well. You may never know. You may get a scholarship, and an old post you made, the school might see it later and say that this is not something we stand for, and withdraw the scholarship. It happens. People go through that. I'm not saying that always the school is right for doing that, but I'm just saying that it happens. Okay, sometimes you need to stand your ground. It may not have been something too bad, and you meant what you say, and you still believe in that thing, and that's you. But I'm just saying that those things happen. What you put on social media matters. Okay, so please take a look into that and do that. Isaac says, please, how does one join your NGO? Yes, from time to time we put our calls for volunteers. Currently, we are not looking for volunteers. We may look for one or two, but not like a huge call where we actually call for volunteers. But one thing we are always looking for is mentors. We are always looking for people for sessions like this. If you want to really volunteer and you feel like all the things I said, you have some value you can provide, you have something, or let's say, for instance, let me give an actual need we have at DYG. Let's say you want to take it upon yourself as a volunteer for DYG. I'm not saying you should do it, but if you want to and you really mean it, maybe you can get in touch. And let's say you want to volunteer to be the one who arranges some of these sessions with people who have won scholarships, who does the reaching out, like really want to help DYG do the work it does. Okay. And you can also use it on your applications. That's perfectly fine. But you need to contact us. You can't just do it in our blind side. But I'm just giving an example of a real need or something that you could do if somebody's interested. Share our work, share our posts, put it upon yourself to sometimes moderate some of these groups, push the conversation forward in some of these groups that we have for Dear Young Graduate. Someone could also volunteer and say, okay, for me, I'm just going to take it upon myself to make sure that DYG always has like a speaker each month. And you speak to the speakers and you're like, so of course you speak to DYG first and they give you the go ahead or whatever after vetting you and so on and so forth. And you go around and you ask people, would you like to talk to DYG? We have this slot open, that sort of thing. So if you want to join DYG, that is one thing you can do to support us. Then it says, can you provide examples of scholarships that are available for students pursuing SDG related research? Well, there are a lot of scholarships. Off the top of my head, if you say research is not I'm not a researcher, but I'm sure some of my team members can be able to point you in that direction. So it's either you put those kind of questions on the group, on the WhatsApp group, or on social media. But off the top of my head, if what you are asking is what I think you are asking, for instance, around scholarships that align with SDGs, there are a lot of them. All the national scholarships do. Shivini, Commonwealth, McBain McCall, DAAD, Erasmus Mundus, like all of those scholarships. Maybe Erasmus Mundus may be one of those research-based kind of scholarships that most people apply to, and most of the times it's research that they are going to do. So please look into that. And of course, Google is your friend. Please use Google to select some of these or put in some of these questions. ChatGPT can easily do all of these questions you're asking me. You'll be surprised at the amount of work it can do. Don't use it to write your essays though, but you can use it to support your scholarship search or scholarship application, but don't use it to write your essays. Write the essay and ask the AI to tell you where you are lacking. Let's say where you did well and you should expand upon, where you did not clarify properly, and what is missing. Those are the three things. And it will just tell you generically, like, okay, you need to expand on this, you need to take this out, or this does not come clearly, or you didn't add anything about your professional expertise, you didn't add anything about your leadership. It will just give you points. Then you would now go and add those things. Those are the only use for AI you can use for your essays. Please, if you do it, they now check. They've been checking from ages for people taking other people's essays, but now they're also checking for whether AI wrote it. So they've been checking forever, but now they're also checking with AI. So please don't even try it. And if you try it and it gets you, I don't know, sometimes you may not get into that scholarship again. I don't know, but just don't do it. Just don't do it at all. It's not a great idea. Then Theophilus says, I did a volunteering work from 2016 to 2019 with some colleagues, which required us to travel to other regions. We haven't been active for some time now. I would like to know if it can still be used. Yes, it can still be used. Like, there's no timeline, there's no deadline for it. Like, you see, the thing is that you did it from 2016 to 2019. You can talk about it, but you should also know that from 2019 to 2025, what have you been up to? That's something you must also answer. It's like, yes, you can tell us what you did 10 years ago, but if the thing you did was 10 years ago, a lot of things have changed. So you can tell us about that thing, but you need to tell us more. But if whatever you did was recently, it's fine. Like it's good. It's okay. You can use that. But if it's an old thing and it's at least 5 years old, you need to update like what the progress has been, what other things have you been doing. So it's one of those examples you are giving of how you have impacted your community or how you've given back. Okay. The next question, and guys, please, if there are any questions on Facebook, please bring them to my attention. You can put them in the chat. I want to answer the question from Kojo. It says, how can I describe informal volunteering, like teaching, helping teach neighborhood kids in a way that connects to the SDGs? Okay, okay. I think I talked about this, and it's not technically informal volunteering. It's volunteering. Let's just call it what it is. You volunteered and you taught kids. What did you, first of all, teaching is automatically, or education is automatically under quality education. But maybe you taught them something in tech. So that means that it is not just quality education, but it's also, for instance, industry and innovation, which is, I think, SDG. If I'm not mistaken, let's go back, which is SDG 9, I think. Yeah, there you have it. Yes, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. So maybe yes, you taught the kids. That's quality education, first of all. Then you taught them something in tech, AI, robotics, something. Then it becomes industry. So now your SDGs are now 4 and 9. Okay, so those are some of the things. So you may have done something in, let's say, gender equality, but maybe you did gender equality in, let's say, peace and justice. Let's say more girls should be interested in studying law. Those are the things. So it's like you just have to make sure that you are covering all your bases. And like I said, you don't need to narrow down to one specific SDG. You can be all 17, but I don't know anybody who has been able to say that they are working on all 17 because it's too much. Like you can't work on all 17 at the same time, but at least 2, 3, 4, 5, it's fine. Okay. Beyond 5 is too much. You can't do everything. You just have to narrow down to the specific one that you do more. So if it is more teaching that you do, the main SDG will be SDG 4, but the subset or the additional SDG will be, let's say, 9. So please take a look at that. Isaac also says, I applied for a grant using AI to write my essay and it was detected and I could not get a grant. There you have it. And I don't know, I'm not saying that, Isaac, this is what happened, but like it could also mean that for a specific number of years, you will not get it. Like they will just blacklist you. Like you just spoiled your reputation with those people. And your name may be on the list somewhere. You don't know. So it's like they caught you the first time and you apply for another essay. The next one, don't even read your essay. And that's how it is, because there are so many people they have to go through. So don't even try it. Don't do it. Like, just don't do it. Even when you use AI to give you suggestions on what your essay is missing, when it tells you or writes the thing that are missing, don't copy those specific things into your essay. No. So if it tells you are lacking leadership stuff, example, and it gives you an example, don't copy that example and put it in your this thing. Write it yourself. Write your own example. Why? It's because when you are human, even in this chat, I was having it difficult reading some of the questions. Not because your grammar was bad or something. It's just that as a human, you will use tenses in places they are not supposed to be. Those are so it needs to be wrong. So it's like if it's too perfect, you get detected. And that's what the detection does. It just detects perfection. You get, so if your essay is too perfect, and AI will not use S where you don't need to use S. AI will use S where you use S, will use all where you use, so it will be too perfect. And that's the whole thing. So write it yourself. So whatever leadership example is giving you, write something else that you actually went through. And when you write it, it may be a good sentence, but you know grammar and stuff. People, if you're a proper English person, the person may see that, okay, the grammar is not the best, or the tenses or whatever, or the spelling, something. It always shows that you're human. It does not mean that your essay gets marked down. You're not going to get marked for your grammar or your English. It's more about showing that you actually did it. It's grammar and you're using uh, um, vernacular or something. That's all it needs. Okay. So the next one I'll read is quite a long one. So Precious, could you please summarize it? Um, for me, I'll come back to it. Then it says, are scholarship committees more impressed by the impact of the volunteer project or the innovation behind it? I would say both, and it depends on the scholarship agency and the committee. And you have to know that for the first review, of course, sometimes machines and softwares do the review of the applications. Then it just gives the humans the applications that were good or met the criteria. So it is going to be a human who is going to read it. So sometimes, as a human reading something, depending on your mood, depending on the day, determine on the time of day it was being read, depending on your name, it could be anything. Okay. So both are true. The impact is very important. The innovation behind it is very important. But it depends on the person reading it or the committee reading it or whoever is evaluating your essay at the time. So what you need to do rather, or instead of that, is to instead make sure that you are able to communicate both clearly. The impact is very, very important, but the innovation is also very, very important. You will not always have an innovation as part of your impact. Let's not confuse other people here, Kojo. Some may have just purely impact, and we did this. 2 people came and they did. That's good. That's okay. But some people also may say that, okay, we did this. 2 people came, 5 people came, 5 people came, and we came up with a new product, a new way of doing things. Okay, some people may have that as well. So when you came up with a new way, how have you been using it? What new insights have you gained from it? It just depends on you. What do you feel more proud about? Is it the innovation that came out of it or the impact numbers? Whichever one you feel more comfortable with or more proud about, make that one more prominent, okay? Or give that one more words or more space in your essay, basically, okay? Then, of course, Koju again says, how should I balance storytelling and statistics when describing my SDG volunteering and scholarship essays? Storytelling is very important. Being able to captivate your reader or grabbing the attention of your reader is very important. I don't mean that start with those weird quotes. Some people have weird way of starting, but start well. Tell a good story. And it may be a lot of work. I know scholarships are a lot of work. I will tell you what I do, okay? You can decide on whether it makes sense to you or not. What I do is that I use the approach writers used to write books. So if you ever get a chance to go on YouTube or Google or something, you can Google the story. It's called a storyboard. Writers or people who write films call it a storyboard. It's basically, let's say you have 60 minutes of a film. 10 minutes should be the beginning of the film, telling you who the characters are, what they are about, just 10 minutes. 5 minutes should be about the problem the characters will solve or the encounter. Then another 10 minutes will be, normally in films, there's always the part where they were about to do something, then something happened, and they all decided not to do the thing again. Then later came back. I don't know whether you get what I'm saying. It's like there's always that in action films and stuff. People come together and they do the thing, and there's a happy ending. It's an arc. It's like up and down. So what I used to do with my essays is that if it says 100, 500 words, I would say 50 words, and I'll stick to it. 50 words will be for introduction. If I write my introduction in 70 words, I will change the words. I will change the grammar. I did this so well that I was able to, let's say, if you give me 50 words, I can summarize it in 15 words for you. And it won't lose any meaning. I'll avoid is there, the boy. So instead of the boy is going, he went. That's all. So it's like instead of the boy is going to school, he went to school. It becomes 4 instead of 6. Those are the things. So you tell yourself that storytelling, 50 words will be for introduction, 20 words will be for your one leadership opportunity you had, or you want to put 3 leadership opportunities in there. So you say 50 words is for introduction, 50 is for one leadership, another 50 for another one. So now you have 200 words already. Okay. Then another 50 will be for your motivation for the thing. Then another 50 will be for your conclusion and why you want to study the thing or what you get out of it. So you have 50, 50, 50. So now you've drafted like a storyboard of how you're going to tell your story. So you now have start to finish. So 50 for introduction, 50 each for 3 examples of your leadership, then another 50 for why you want to study the thing or something, then another 50 for like a conclusion. Then you say, okay, now I'm at 500 words. I know that's not up to 500, but I'm just telling you that this is how, books are written, films are made. So if you want to balance your storytelling and statistics, that's how you do it. That way you are able to, put them in compartments, okay? Compartments on how you're doing the thing. So you see that when you do this, use this approach, no matter what you write, because you are trying to stick to 50 words for your introduction and it ends up being 100 and you are able to slash it down to 50 and you build it like that, no matter how you read it, it reads like a perfect story. It's like, okay, we started, this is the introduction, this is one thing I did, this is one thing I did, this is one thing I did, and this is how all 3 experiences or leadership opportunities connect together to each other. And this is the insights I got from all 3. And this is 50 words of how I'm going to use those leadership experiences to this course or this scholarship. Then this is the conclusion. So I can't tell you that do this, do that, because everybody is different. Like everybody writes differently. I can't even tell you examples of how to start your essay. Some people start with, I remember a time when blah, blah. Some people start with, as when I was a child. Like people start with differently. So it's just about how you start, how you end, and how you're able to cultivate the attention of the reader. And that's the most important thing. Isaac again says, please, with the AI issue, can one do research on a topic on Google and write it in a book instead of copy and paste? So are you copy and pasting or writing the same thing? Like, okay, I'm not a tech expert, but I work with AI a lot. Most of these graphics you are seeing, all of these graphics, most of them, you can see that it says somewhere that made by napkin. Let's see if I can find one of those. Well, maybe you may be seeing it. I'm not seeing it. Some of it says made by napkin. It's an AI tool, but I gave it prompts of what I wanted to see. Okay. So it's very important that you find a good balance. Use the AI and Google to do the search for the scholarship. Whether you write it in a book or you copy and paste it, it's the same thing. Because if you write it in a book, you are just copying the perfect sentence that the AI has given you into a book. Whether to later type it into a Word document, it's the same thing. It's not about the copy and paste. It's not about copying the thing on Google and pasting it in your document. That's what I'm talking about. It's about the sentence structure. I don't want to do grammar here, but I'm saying that how the sentence was put together, it is more robotic. It is more perfect. It is paying attention to all the grammatic laws. And all of us took English in class, like in school. All the grammar rules they taught us, I'm telling you, you can't obey all of them when you're writing an essay. Like you forget some. You forget why when something else ends in an S, why you're not supposed to add S to the plural. Is why you are supposed to put just a comma at the end. And that's the plural of the something that ends in an S. All of those rules. Sometimes when you're writing, you just write it with an S. But an AI knows this, can process all the 2,000 rules of English and put together a sentence that is perfect, that has no issues. And that's the issue with AI. But when it is you will forget that subject, syntax, all of those grammar stuff. I'm sorry, but I'm just trying to say that like you will forget all of those things, or you would not pay attention to every single rule. And that's what makes your sentence more credible, or that's what makes your story much more personal because there are mistakes in it. I'm not saying intentionally put mistakes in it. That will also go against you. Mistakes that don't change what the essay is, mistakes that don't change the meaning, mistakes that don't take away from what you are trying to say. No spelling mistakes, of course. Don't put spelling mistakes in there because you also have to cross-check your work. If you don't correct the mistakes, it also shows that you're not paying attention, you did not read, you just rushed and you just sent it in. Okay. So please keep in mind that AI is a good tool, but it shouldn't be the only tool that you use. What type of documentation or portfolios best showcase SDG aligned project work, volunteer work for scholarship applications? Documentation that showcase volunteer work portfolio. There are no documentations per se. The only documentation I know off my head are two. Is your CV and your essay, depending on the essay you're asking you to write, whether a personal statement or a motivational letter, or they have specific essays that they want you to write. Those are the only things. So I don't know what specific documentation where you are keeping your evidence of AIM volunteer work. I don't know. Create your own Google Doc and put all of those things in there. That's fine. When you need them, you can just refer to them. But there's no specific documentation that anybody will ask you to provide that showcase your SDG aligned volunteer work. Okay. So please, don't overthink it. It's very simple. It's just that, like, let common sense prevail. Respectfully, I don't mean anything by this, but all I mean is that just know that anything you think about, they've thought about. Anything, any way you want to beat the system, people have already done that before you, and they've already come up with ways of identifying those things. So that's all. So don't use AI to write it. Don't let anybody write it for you. If somebody writes it for you, most proper or good scholarship agencies, when you write the application, you go for interview. So yes, you may pass the first round, which is that the essay is good. But now when they ask you that the project you went to do in the northern region, how did it make the people feel? Because you were not there or you didn't write it yourself, you will now start making things up. And when you are trying to come up with a lie on the spot, they do this for a living. They know when somebody is being insincere and all. So please don't give chance to all of these things, okay?